jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line.
65 horsepower trap. That might pop wide open, Rats.
Is that there, Rats? Nice done, baby. Yes, sir, Rats. High snap. It's no good. The Chargers Here comes the rush. He sidesteps. Can he throw? He can't. The ball flipped forward is loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper is recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most seedy.
Hello and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. I am Richie Richey of the MHRT Network on this Wednesday evening. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. And wow, do we ever have a fiery crowd in the chat today. I really appreciate all of you for joining us live. Just as a quick reminder, it really does help all of us. If you go ahead and click those like, subscribe, and comment after the video, it really kind of tweaks the YouTube algorithm to allow more fans of all of our teams to join us live. We get a lot of extra traffic that way, and we get more people just like yourself in the chat, which allows for some very lively conversation, not to mention some great comedy skits after the fact. So I'd like to welcome all of us here today. We have had a super busy week, especially the last few days, really. We have the practice squad being built on all of our teams. We have the initial 53 roster cuts. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm good, sir. It's football season, man. We are getting ever so close to real meaningful football, man, and I can't wait. The grass is smelling different. It is looking good out here.
It's turf. Come on.
I'm going to call it grass. It's green. I'm going to call it grass. Old school.
Sure.
Old school.
Sure. So, I guess your lawn is full of dandelions. You just refer to that as a lawn, right?
No, I'm all green out here, baby.
Okay.
I'm all green out here. Fresh and nice. It's all green.
All right.
Nicely treated. Well kept.
Very nice. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Ready, kind of like Coach said, the grass is greener. I'm ready for week 1 and ready to see the Chiefs against Arizona. And just so we can get rolling into, the regular season, I can tell you guys how wrong you've been for the past, 3-4 months. So,
oh, really?
Things are looking nice.
Yeah. Okay.
So you mean to tell me you're really that type of guy? You're the one that wants to hold back and wait to tell you I told you so.
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, at least all the cards are on the table.
Sounds quite
Wait. If you're gonna do that,
slap it down.
If you're gonna do that, you got to do the "told you so" dance. So as part of Will and Grace, okay? Told you so. Told you so. Told you. So. Yeah,
What is
learn
that
it.
show?
I've never watched that show in my life.
Me neither. He's by himself on that one.
You really labeled yourself with that one, didn't you?
Dude, I have no problem. Okay, I have no problem saying that because old Will and Grace was pretty funny for like the first couple seasons. Then it just kind of went down, kind of like when Fonzie literally jumped the shark, which is what you get that expression from. So I had no problem saying that. Now when they brought it back, I was like, what in tarnation? And there's an old dude term.
Tarnation. SpongeBob.
Tarnation.
Yeah. What?
Oh no, no! That goes all the way back to Yosemite Sam from the cartoons there on Saturday morning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good
I'm
point.
definitely. Well, what varmint?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That goes way back. That's and frankly that's a classic in terms of a term and one that really ought to come back because I think it's a great thing to insert into random conversations.
Yeah, but
I think Cat needs to do an episode in that voice.
You You can't do that nowadays because they're gonna old anything that's old like that, old cartoons, old movies, like for example, Porky's.
Oh yeah, that can't happen. No, that's not happening these days. No.
You can't do that nowadays. I'm sure that somebody would say it's racist, it's sexist, it's homophobic, it's anti-bird. If you would
anti-bird.
do like the Swedish stuff,
anti-bird,
ovarian, right? It's ovarian. Isn't that
Jesus.
the
I don't know where this is going.
Right, I'm not. Hands up. I'm out of that one. I'm out of that one.
My neighbor has a shotgun that begs to differ about anything anti-bird, so we'll just call that what it is.
That's the stand.
As we're about to move on to today's show and all the different topics here, we're going to delve right into the initial 53 roster. That's right, I said initial 53 roster because, as we all know, this is an ebb and flow situation where each of our teams, and I don't care who you are or what team you're with, that was just the initial cut down, and there will continue to be changes. So we will likely not see the same 53 men on the roster today as we will come opening even week 1.
Very possible.
Before we delve right into it and get into the 53 roster and throw over to Captain Jack to give us his take on what happened with the Las Vegas Raiders, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us live in the chat. Just to give a shout out to some of our viewers that are live with us today. Avatar, thank you as always for joining us. You always bring some historical references to the Broncos, and I know that you and Captain kind of volley back and forth on some of the the yesteryear Broncos, Raiders, etc., which is amazing because that really gives some context as to where we are now. Tito, thank you for joining us. We also
You were late. You were late.
That's right, Cap. Yell at your fans.
Yeah. Get off my lawn.
That is by definition salty pirate.
Right.
And SoCal Slime, thank you for joining us today. That is incredible that you are back with us today. And we have a Facebook. We have Filu Rubin. Thank you for joining us today. Everyone, if you are over on Twitter, I'm going to quickly go ahead and throw a banner up. I forgot to mention at the top of the show, Twitter has prevented us from pulling your comments up. We are not ignoring you. We really do want to get you joining us. The problem is Twitter won't let us pull your comments in. So if you want to get your comment live on the show, ask us questions and interact and have fun, jump over to YouTube. That's where we prefer you to join us, is over on YouTube. And if you would prefer not to join on YouTube for whatever reason, Facebook will also allow us to pull up your comments here on the show live. And thank you all for joining us live today. To go back to some of the folks that are joining us live, man, there is a long list here. Lafayette, thank you very much for joining us live. We have Matt Maravich. How are you doing today?
Marinovich.
What?
Marinovich, just like the quarterback.
Sure. We have DZ. Thank you for joining us again. Always love the Twitter and kind of back and forth there. We have CRF16. That's a new
viewer.
A new name in the chat. Thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate.
That's Ruben.
Hi, Ruben.
The same Ruben. Ruben Fellu on Facebook. That's Ruben on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Thank you for joining us. We have the numbers. In Leet speak, that's where you replace letters and numbers together. Thank you for joining us today. We have Sam. Sam, thank you for joining us. And KB82, there's a name that we don't see all that often, but KB82, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments in the chat. We want to go ahead and pull that in.
You saw that, didn't you? Okay. That wasn't me.
I was wondering that. I was like, what's going on? I thought it was my contact. So
I thought he blazed one before we put the show.
Again, I have no problem.
Hey, Captain,
no problem saying it. No
Captain, you're going to appreciate this next one from Mundungus. He's right alongside you about the whole.
He's willing to stand on that.
You two old fogies can go share episode with each other. We don't care.
Yeah,
we don't care.
Yeah,
Mundungus, baby.
Matthew, thank you for joining us tonight. We have Raiderette for life. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And the one and only NFL Nation Live, which goes live on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is just after we end here.
Nice.
And Thomas TJ Burpee or Burpee, whatever. I don't know. There's no accents in there, so I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce it. Thank you for joining us. So as we no, I did not lick my webcam before I went live.
Did the dog do it?
I believe it's just the fact that it has to traverse, the whole U.S.-Canadian border. They hate the fact that I have to travel through customs. So, Captain, over to you. With regards to the 53 roster cut down, with regards to, the Raiders, were there any surprises? What did you think? And frankly, what are your items of feedback that you like to kind of let everyone know? Just generally speaking.
Okay. First off, again, I'm with my boy Mundungus, man. Good sitcoms are good to have. Anyway, I would say that there's actually a surprise and a oh my mother God. Okay, notice I didn't say it, okay, but I did mouth it. Okay?
Say what?
The surprise was all of Raider Nation, and remember, there is only one nation. Okay, there's a country, there's a kingdom, and then whatever the hell they do up in LA, the gang wars up there.
Gang war, really?
Up there, the turf.
You got to thugs. You're talking about gang wars. I mean, come on. Your corner was blasting gats on social media.
Hello. There's a lot of more criminal history in the Raiders organization than it is in LA. No.
Right Bay, wrong side. Go over to the other side. That's where all the crap is, my friend. And I
do we got to pull the receipts? Do we got to pull the receipts? I mean,
trust me, I can get you on it. Anyway, going back to the surprise. See, you got me all worked up. I'm going to have coughing fits. It's still the post-COVID crap. The surprise was, and actually there were two, and Ed Winchell just popped one. By the way, folks, I do not have control of the board. Remember, I used to be able to pull thoughts in. I don't have control of the board at all until that gets fixed. So if you're saying, why ain't I getting some of the Raider grabs, I can't grab anything for this show and until they fix that. So don't get pissed at me. I can't do it. So I can only see what I can see as well. The two surprises were that even I was amazed that the Raiders booted. He said, "You got some loss because you were in my show the other day," and that was really nice for him to come in. So that was nice to do that. But the surprise was that the Raiders, they said, you know what? Our first round pick last year sucked so bad that he would have to improve just to be called a sucky player. And that's being literal. I mean, when I was doing my show on Thursday night when the Raiders were playing, and even the commentators were like right on cue, they were saying how bad he was. And then we had like highlights of him being just tore up in the Pittsburgh game where TJ Watt was shown on the screen for the top 100, just totally, just making him look awful, like Pee-wee awful. Okay. It was horrible to see that. So there it is. The fact that the Raiders cut him loose, that would have never happened in an Al Davis regime. Never. No matter who it was, if you're a first round pick or a second round pick, you have your scholarship for as long as forever. Okay. But the new regime figured out that this guy has lost all confidence, and that's what it is. He's not as bad as he was playing. He really isn't. You know, he was an Outland Trophy winner down in Alabama, but he's god awful. So I think that somebody is going to, and
that's my greatest. That might be the best comment that I've seen.
Yes, I like that, and that's from a Raiders fan.
Yeah, that's right there. Good job.
Yeah. But the thing is that we cut him, and and I would say bravo to the new staff because they have nothing. They have no ties to Alex Leatherwood. And even though that they were eating a lot of that cap, they're like, you know what? You're gone.
Hey, Cap.
They got rid of him. And don't wait, coach. Wait, coach.
I had a question about what you said. I had a question.
No, because I think your question is going to be my addendum in a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
I think your question is going to be my addendum. So not only did they get rid of him and they took the big cap hit, but they also traded Mullen, who was oft injured and was not. You remember, your best ability is availability, and he was a decent cornerback, but he's oft injured, and he had a really crappy attitude. I'm being kind saying crappy because I really would like to use the word that begins with S and rhymes with city. Okay, attitude, and that's Mullen. So we traded him for a conditional pick, and we probably won't even get anything for the conditional pick because he probably won't even, play enough to make a 7th round pick. We got rid of him. And it's this regime says, if you aren't up to snuff, if you aren't going to provide for this team, we don't care where you were drafted. Mullen was a 2nd round pick. Leatherwood was a 1st round pick. They had cap ramifications. It's like, you know what? You're gone. And they got rid of him. He got cut. Now, the big surprise, and I want to thank the Windy City, baby. I want to thank the Windy City. Chicago, you're my kind of town. Because they were stupid enough. They were stupid enough to put in a waiver claim for said, what's his name, Richie?
Pleatherwood.
Thank you. They were stupid enough to put in a waiver claim for, what's his name, Richie?
Pleatherwood.
Thank you. Which cut the Raiders hit. We don't owe him the $6 million extra. They picked it up. They picked up that.
You can call him Driftwood now, right?
Whatever. And you know what? Driftwood, Spankwood.
He's just drifting away.
Yeah.
You can call him Wilson. You can call him Wilson, just like the guy in.
I hope he goes to Chicago and just balls out.
Balls out, right.
I hope that. He's like, man, they just weren't playing me right. I told them to do this and this. They just didn't do it. And then boom.
Well, hold on. Captain, before you answer that question, before you answer that question, because I think it's important. I've been on your show before. We've had some discussions about Leatherwood, and
you said that he was wrong. He was wrong. It was the wrong choice.
I mean, it was to call him a stretch and a reach is an understatement. But when you look at where he was actually better at, he was a way better guard than he was a tackle.
Yeah.
So the question is, okay, so $6 million for, which is what his annual salary is for the next, was it 2 years? I think, given the fact that he was a 1st round pick, he's in his third year now, right?
No, it was 2nd year.
So he's got $6 million a year owed to him over the remainder of his contract.
I don't know what his cap ramifications are, but you know what? I don't care because we ain't paying for it.
No, so even from what I read, it's $6 million a year for the remainder of his contract. So
2 years and an option,
which is no, it'll be 3 years and an option, right? Because he's a 1st round pick. So
5
so
years.
if he's 1 year off, then that means he's $6 million, and then you have the 5th year option. So if he can turn it around as a guard, $6 million a year is not that bad if he is a starting guard in the NFL. And so I guess what my question is if he was looking good as a guard, or at least decent as a guard, which is what he was looking like, why wouldn't the Raiders have simply moved him inside to guard if he was looking okay at that position? Because $6 million a year for a starting NFL guard is not necessarily horrible value.
I'm glad you asked that.
Well, I'm glad you're glad.
He didn't even. Let me get in a close up here. Okay. He didn't even play well as a guard in the preseason. He is shot mentally. Mentally, he is shot. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I definitely need a trim on my mustache because everybody can see I look like Wilford Brimley. But it doesn't matter. Okay. He didn't even play well as a guard. And the bad thing is it's up here.
So you're saying it's mental.
Didn't they tried to play him at guard last year, didn't they?
No, and he played well. He didn't play well. He played better each week as a guard. And even revolving door Parker played decent as a tackle each week. But here's the thing. Here's the line. This is the decent line. Okay. He barely broke the decent line and got a little bit better. So they weren't playing. Yeah, $6 million for a starting guard if it can come back and he can do that. And you know what? I don't hate him. I don't hate Alex Leatherwood. I don't. And I hope that he does well for any team that has him, providing they're out in the AFC West and providing that he doesn't have a great game against the Raiders. You know, it's just one of those things. I don't wish him ill will, but he has to figure it out up here. And that's what killed him this year. He lost all cojones. He has no protein in those balls left, man. I don't know what's going on, but he has definitely nothing left down there. He's lost it. He's lost it. I'm sorry to say he's got no
marbles.
You got no marbles.
Huevos?
You got no marbles.
Huevos?
Yeah. So that's it. And you know what? And Mundungus, funny joke.
Yeah, I think so too. He had a lot of good signings that lasted a day or two. So
you know what? Again, I need to say this to you there, but
can't see.
Well, actually,
round
before you go all the way there,
round 3 to 7, and our undrafted free agents are doing well, shipmate. But
Captain, that's exactly the point. The general consensus out of your fan base is Mike Mayock picked the later round drafts, and by and large, your late round draft picks have done very well.
And unrestricted free agents.
And UDFAs, whereas Gruden picked the early rounds, and that's really where you guys ultimately struggled. So if Mayock truly did, in fact, pick those later round draft picks, then I would argue he was probably a much better GM than people are truly giving him credit for, because he was likely hindered by Gruden.
Okay, true. But I give to you, Richie, the fact is that all 7, maybe 6, all 6 of our draft picks this year, plus 4 UDFAs, made the 53. That's 6 and 4. What is that, Alex? Even you can figure out what 6 plus 4 is.
12.
There you go.
He's a Chiefs fan. Math is not his strong suit.
Yeah,
but pretty sure one of us is right and one of us is wrong, and I was right. So,
but the point is that regime is out. So say what you say. Throw dirt on it, put a headstone on it. It's done. It's done.
Yeah, but do you really think that your new regime? But do you really think that your new regime in their first year is going to start cutting draft picks?
Well, here's the thing, though. I actually watched what our draft picks did and our undrafted free agents did this preseason. And again, I'm talking unbiased, really, 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 really unbiased, looking as a pure football fan. The kids that we had that came in, Mumford was looking like an all pro. Obviously, he was, against other things, but he was looking like he was going to be the right tackle before he got injured. Okay. And that's the kid that was a good product out of I hate saying it, Ohio State University, when he was a all Big Ten product. And we got him in the 7th round. And the only reason why we got him in the 7th round was because he went from tackle to guard back to tackle, and he kind of dropped in draft status because of that, because he was a team guy for Ohio State. But he was just kicking ass and taking names. Okay. 7th rounder Parham looked fantastic. In fact, he might be a starter on the line at left guard. Yeah, thanks, Jack. Hey, hit those like buttons, especially for my channel and MHRT and coaches stuff. And as soon as Alex figures out that he can get a YouTube channel, doesn't cost him any money, he'll have a YouTube channel too. He's getting there. He's coming. He's getting there. That's I love him. But no, and you got, like I said, Parham, and then you got Mumford. The two kids that we got on the line, Farrell and Butler, played well. Okay. And then you got Britton Brown, who was the 7th rounder. People were kind of scratching their head. I think he led the NFL in yards as a running back, or at least was top 3 in yards of running back in the preseason. Okay. I know for a fact that he definitely led at least one of the weeks. He was the leader for one of the weeks. And that's not saying how awesome Zeus White was, who's probably gonna take Jacobs off the roster next year. So then you got those. You got the kid, Webb at cornerback. That's why we let Mullen go, because Webb played so well. You got Bam Olaseni, who is a mountain that we picked up on our practice squad. He didn't even make the 53, but he's going to be a product there on the practice squad. You got Masterson and Butler, the other Butler, undrafted free agents that were studs as linebackers, okay? And I'm glad they made the squad. And it's not that they were products or they were coaches' pets. These guys kicked ass and took names. They were that good. They were that good in the preseason. And you know what? I was very happy to see that they made the team. And by the way, and I'm the only, well, he's got a Wild Wild West shirt. I'm the only one that doesn't have a Raiders thing on, but I do have my Harley on, but the colors are good. But anyway, okay. I like what the regime has done. I like the fact that they said if you're not performing, you're not going to be on this team. And they took the cap hit and thank you, Chicago, for giving us an extra $6 million, because that was awesome. But I like what I saw with this regime. I like the fact that, we didn't really see even a bunch of the starters this year. And even our second stringers were beating first stringers in games this year. And, that portends to be the depth that we're going to have on this team. And by the way, with the Raiders practice squad, every player on the Raiders practice squad that I've seen, and I hope I'm correct here, every one of them was on the roster prior to the cuts. And a lot of times you'll have like mix and match, hey, that guy's really good, we're going to grab him. Every one of those 16 was on that team. So we're building from within, and I like that.
Well, I think that's interesting. So we've kind of covered the Raiders 53, where they're at, some things that you thought were good, some things you thought were bad. We've had some great comments here in the chat. Please keep those coming. Coach, I'm going to throw over to you to the Chargers.
Okay. Well, I would say that it's been a ebb and flow to our cuts in our addition that we made today, which was shocking to me. And I've been going back and forth all day on Twitter with people about whether or not it was a good look or good move. But we'll get everywhere. We'll get to that. I'll give you my take on that in a minute. But I was shocked to see early on that Christian Covington got cut. I really thought that he had a solid preseason. I think he had a solid. He played well in the games that he played. From a run defense perspective, I was kind of shocked to see that. And I only equated to the fact that he was much less of a cap hit to let go versus Jerry Tillery. Jerry Tillery was going to cost us about $2.9 million in dead money had we cut him. But the problem I had with that is that if you going to have a person with $2.9 million and not really play versus a guy that can contribute, I don't see why you wouldn't just cut bait. I mean, clearly he wasn't a trade candidate for anybody because they didn't even shop him around. But yet again, why waste the nice quick wardrobe change, Rich? Gee, Broncos country too, Okay, nice wardrobe change.
You had to open your mouth, man. You had to open your mouth.
He said it. So
Here you go, Tito. How's that? Is that better for you? Does that work? Or are we good now? Yeah, thanks.
But nonetheless, the Christian Covington was a bit of a shock. And then the fact that they kept 4 running backs, and this is prior to the move they made today. They kept Larry Roundtree on top of having Isaiah Spiller and Josh Kelly on the roster already, who had solid camps as well. So kept Larry Roundtree only to ultimately, when they saw Sony Michel be let go from the Dolphins, they brought him in for a visit, and he did. It was such a quick, short order too, because they brought him in, had a visit, signed a contract, and they put him in uniform this afternoon for practice. He was out there on the practice field already. So, I question the idea of having 4 running backs to begin with, because I think the 3 we had above those guys were capable. I think that Austin Eckler clearly is your starter, and you drafted Spiller for this express reason of taking the workload of and the lion's share of the carries off of Austin Eckler's workload throughout the season. And Josh Kelly had a bang up preseason, so he looks like the issues that we've had with him overall in the past is starting to work themselves out. So I feel like those were 3 solid backs, and I think you can win and you have solid depth with 3. But they kept 4, and then they go out and get Sony Michel, which is a head scratcher to me. And a lot of people, Chargers fans included, are saying that they think it's a solid move. But again, where does he fit? What type of role is he going to contribute on top of the fact that he's been moved on from 3 times already? The Patriots moved on from him. The Rams moved off from him, and then the Dolphins did. So what is it about Sony Michel that people don't like once he gets in camp that they ultimately move off of him? And he hasn't been wildly productive. He was decently productive for the Rams while Cam Akers was gone. But guess what? The moment Cam Akers came back, it was him and the Darrell Henderson show. Sony Michel kind of faded into the background yet again. So I don't have high expectations for Sony. I think you could have used that roster spot for another receiver, because what they ended up doing, which is kind of surprising to me, that they did bring in DeAndre Carter to be the primary kick returner. But he also plays receiver. He's the 5th receiver. So why not have another kick returner and wide receiver in the room to help, take the brunt of the special teams duty off of DeAndre Carter's back? So I would have kept Michael Bandy. Michael Bandy is a dual role guy in that aspect. He plays receiver, a slot receiver, and he plays kick and punt return. So I would have opted to use the roster spot for that versus using it for a 4th running back. When in its own right, if people have been paying attention to Lombardi's offense, Lombardi isn't a run-centric or run-heavy guy. He's a run-balanced guy. Like, he'll run, to keep you honest, but he likes to throw the ball. So carrying 4 running backs is kind of a head-scratcher to me when you could have used that roster spot for a different person. But overall, those were the main, I guess you can say, surprises or head-scratchers for me. Putting Michael Bandy on a practice squad versus active roster spot. Jerry Tillery still on the roster for God knows what reason. Christian Covington not being in Jerry Tillery's role.
Glossy photos.
And
Tillery's on the roster because he has glossy photos.
Is that what that is?
Of something from someone, maybe
I don't know. Again, they didn't want to cut bait with $2.99 million. I don't think there's a big ask to do away with.
That's nothing.
Right. According to Raiders, that's nothing. So clearly, I don't know what they're thinking, but yeah, that was a head scratcher for me. But outside of that, everything else was pretty much expected. And I think that the roster is where it needs to be. They kept one more linebacker than I thought they would keep. But yeah, outside of that, I think it's pretty much in line with what I predicted.
Were any surprises on the Chargers roster aside from Sony Michel, which I'm not going to lie, I laughed at when I saw it today. But aside from Sony Michel, are there any other moves that you guys made that you were disappointed with?
Not really. I mean, based upon what was out there in on the waiver wire, in a sense, because that's one thing I was going to tell Cap about, because I learned the difference today between released and waived. Like, I thought they were pretty much in the same boat, but if you get waived and get claimed, like Cap alluded to, you take on that person's contract that they had previously, which lets the Raiders off the hook for their dead money. So, and it's actually $14 million in guaranteed money that he's owed. I just looked it up on Over the Cap. You do $14 million in dead money if had they released them and not got anybody to pick him up. So they dodged the bullet there. But yet again,
Thank you, Chicago.
I know,
Thank
right?
you, Chicago.
Right. So I think that overall, that's that's mainly where it lands for me as far as the roster is concerned. I mean, like I said, I don't know why Jerry Tillery is on the roster. We keep saying it, but because I really don't think he's going to play. Like, I mean, because with Brendan Fioco's ascension and he's been a better run defender, I think he's going to play in base. I think Morgan Fox is going to be our specialist from a pass rush perspective in passing downs. So, in Sebastian Joseph Day is a dual threat. He's a run stopping and pass rushing interior D lineman. So, from a starting perspective, where is the fit? Where outside of depth? Where is the role that he's going to play? So, outside of that, I think that's really the only thing that kind of surprised me in what the Chargers have in mind for Jerry Tillery, because yet again, he didn't have a groundbreaking camp either. Like, for a guy that's working for a contract, you would think he would have more of a breakout preseason, and he didn't. It was just pretty much the status quo that he's always had.
So here's the kind of pure objective response is, why keep someone who is not productive over someone who is productive, or at least, or at the very least has shown promise?
Right.
Because as an NFL team, you're always looking for the next guy that might be able to fill in a gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be clear, that goes not just in the NFL, but that goes if you're high school or college as well, right? So if you see a guy that has kind of done some things, you want to make sure that that he has done the things that you're looking for as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Defense, offense, I don't care, or special teams, I don't care who it is. You're going to let that guy know that he has filled in those voids that you're looking for as a team. So why would you lead someone on who, or why as a team would you have kept someone like that when you could have kept someone else who has performed better instead? And moreover, as a Chargers fan, does that make you question some of the coaching decisions?
Not really. I wouldn't say, because you're not going to get everything right, from a front office I
never said you were going to get everything right, but my question is that's a decision-making process from both front office and coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a front office listening too much to scouts and not enough to coaches? Like, does that start, like, as a Chargers fan specifically, does that start raising flags?
No, because if you look at the totality of the situation, like, they've done a bang up. Tom Telesco in his own right has done a bang up job as the GM since he's been there. And then with him hiring Brandon Staley and the regime they have right now, I think they are pretty good company and pretty much in lockstep with the moves they want to make in its entirety. Now, yet again, I think it really just came down to a money thing. Like, Christian Covington didn't have any guarantee money in his deal. Like, he was on a 1-year deal, no guarantee money. So it was kind of it was just really a cap casualty money thing. So I would take no cap hit, and I think the Chargers have the lowest amount of dead money on the books in the entire league right now, versus having a $2.9 million cap hit with Tillery. So if it's I want to say if it's close, you go with the money route, versus saying that he just a complete utter dumpster fire of a talent that you just got to get rid of, a la Pleatherwood. Or you just, again, if it's a close race, you stay with the guy that's making the more money. And again, you will completely clear the books and completely be over Tillery's deal after this year. Like, this is the last year of his deal. So if you pay his contract out, there's no dead money, and then you have money to recoup and don't have any dead money to pay out, and you can re-sign guys, a la Justin Herbert's contract's coming up soon, and things of that nature. Keep your books kind of clean. So when those big money deals come up and you have to re-sign guys that you really want to keep, you have that freedom versus having to pay guys in dead money, for the next 2 to 3 years. in a sense. So I think it was a financial decision versus a talent decision.
If you were to cut Tillery, though, then that would mean that, like, as an example from what you just said, then that would mean that you cut him this year, and then next year you'd still be in the same benefit as you were this year. Whereas if you had kept, say, I think Covington was the guy that you were surprised about,
right,
then you would have a better player who showed better on tape, which, let's be honest, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Right? What do you do on the field?
Yeah.
I don't care who you are as a person. What do
But
you do on the field?
Covington's old, though. You know, Covington's also older than Tillery, so it's kind of probably a catch-22 with both.
Who cares?
Well, but I mean, at the same time, if you cut the older guy for no penalty at all, I'd do that too.
I wouldn't.
Like I said, I think it's a financial thing. Like I said, I really think it was a financial thing.
You're
versus
an
a talent thing.
ageist, you young bastard.
Oh Lord,
An ageist.
Oh, Lord. Ageist.
This is
Are
ageism.
you calling me old?
Yeah, but I don't. But again, I mean, just to answer your question, I don't think it was a issue with it being a issue with the front office having bad decision making, having a bad decision making moment. I think it just really came down to finances. I think that's really what it boiled down to. And if you
Oh, that's such a hot take. It just blew up.
So, as Coach was saying with regards to finances and all that kind of stuff, I guess my only comment back would be, if finances are the primary concern of how you're making your roster's decisions, then
every decision, just that one.
Right, but that's ridiculous to me when you have someone that you're likely going to move on from the year after, and you're making a financial decision of a handful of $1 million on a six-figure $1 million roster. It's ridiculous to me that you would make a financial decision on like a 0.1% or a 1% of that total dollar value. It makes that much sense to me. Because you heard, like, for example, George Payton made a comment about like the Broncos cut Sam Martin as a punter, for example. And we moved on to Waitman, who is a punter. He did really well in preseason. He put up good tape. To me, that was a good both financial decision and team decision. We didn't see a drop-off from him as his play on the field in the preseason, and we saved money as a result. So as far as I'm concerned, I see that as I
didn't do that.
No, that was a California thing. I am pretty sure that is a brownout, probably where Coach is located. We'll have him back shortly.
He's in the Carolinas or Virginia, though.
Oh, well, I either way, I guess that was just lightning striking, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, you should not be making decisions off of a few $1 million if it means the difference of having a better team. And that's really where I was going at with that. If you're talking $2 or $3 million on a roster that's worth like $300 million, that's ridiculous. You should be keeping the better player to make your team better, especially if you actually want to win. So it just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Now, Coach kind of gave a bunch of really interesting takes there. Alex, I'm going to throw over to you real quick. How are you doing with regards to the Chiefs? What are your takes on the 53 roster cuts? Where are you at with all that?
Yeah. In all reality, there wasn't a whole lot that KC did that wasn't a big shock or surprise or really anything that it's pretty much in line with how I thought it would play out as we discussed last week. The biggest shock, I guess, was just that they kept 3 QBs in Buechele, Chad Henne, and obviously it would Mahomes, but just the fact that they kept 2 backups behind Mahomes, just because I kind of thought they would go for more depth at wide receiver or perhaps on the offensive line or just somewhere on the offensive rather than have 3 QBs. And then, kind of in line with that, they only have 5 wide receivers and then 5 running backs, one of them being a fullback. And that was the other surprise, I guess, was that they kept Ronald Jones. I didn't really think that he was going to make it, just kind of with the log jam and the log jam at running back and just kind of where I thought they needed more depth in other spots. But from what all the coaches were saying, he kind of played his way down the stretch of the preseason onto the roster. And so really, in terms of the offense, really no big surprise outside of only having 5 receivers and 3 QBs. Pretty much kept everyone okay. Fair enough.
And the bad thing is that he runs the studio.
Yeah.
Everybody's having issues today, huh?
He said, anyway, I'll just keep going. I guess we're going. But, really didn't think on the offense, I didn't think they did anything too crazy. I thought it was interesting on the defensive side of the ball. They only kept 4 D tackles and 4 linebackers. Went for 6 defensive ends and a couple of them. Well, really one, Joshua Kendo, he's a guy out of Florida State, made the 53, and he didn't really do all that much against the, third teamers out when he was playing to what I thought warrant being on the 53. But there's kind of a caveat with the 4 linebackers, though. They had the designation of Blake Bell, the tight end. He's going to go to the IR. They didn't do that before the cuts because that would end the season. He's not going to be out for the full season. But that's going to bring up another linebacker, Elijah Lee. He's going to be on the 53-man, week 1. Kind of like we talked about, this is just the initial roster, and it's always going to change. I thought it's kind of interesting that was it last year they changed the practice squad to 16?
Yeah. The COVID year, I think the first COVID year they changed it.
But now they have like those what is it? I think you have like 6 vested veterans on the practice squad, and it's almost like you can kind of interchange them out depending on where an injury is or something like that. So right now, Danny Shelton and Taylor Stallworth, which are both defensive tackles who have started on other NFL rosters and played in meaningful NFL games. Currently they're on the practice squad with the mindset that you'll be able to kind of move them up and down each week where things are needed depth wise or depending on some injury or something like that. So I kind of think that the 6 defensive ends they kept is not a permanent thing. And that was just kind of the raw of the first announcement, but I think they're going to kind of interchange some of those guys out. But, outside of that, I didn't really think that they did anything, too crazy in terms of their cuts. They kind of got rid of the usual suspects that you anticipated were going to be gone just by how the preseason went. That's really it. Just kept the status quo, made it out of the preseason pretty healthy, ready to roll for week 1.
So, Alex, in hindsight, I didn't see any major injuries come out of Andy Reid's kind of older style of putting, starters in preseason, etc. Do you think that will actually help you long-term with kind of knocking off the rust? Or do you think that may have added some extra wear where, for example, I'm not trying to pick on names, but like Kelsey, for example, has looked like over the last couple seasons where he has lost a step as the season has gone on, likely due to wear and tear, because he's just been targeted a lot. So I just think that tackles, I don't care who you are, a 200 dude tackling you is going to have an impact on your body. And so I do wonder if those types of decisions may have impacted the long-term options for your team. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, in the Packers game, they kind of did. They sat a little more of the starters than I thought they would. I mean, Mahomes didn't play at all, and he saw some of it in the Packers game.
No, he played. He just didn't play in the last game.
Yeah, that was the last game, wasn't it?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
the Packers game was the last game.
Yeah.
No, but like Mahomes played during the preseason. It's not like they kept.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's really going to impact anything in terms of the regular season. And honestly, like I said, kind of right before your question, they came out of this preseason pretty healthy without any major setbacks. From what like you saw. Patrick go down early, and some kind of across the league, some key players have been injured in preseason, and KC made it out without any of that. You have Blake Bell on the IR, who's third, second tight end, and Niang are the only two coming into the season that are carrying any sort of injury designation. So I think everything's good to go, and how Reed handled the preseason didn't seem to affect anything health-wise, at least as the preseason went on. And I think that kind of with that, you're going to see some of these guys in better prep and a better, just ready to go more. Although when you get to that level, making money, you should be ready to go at any point. So, I don't know if it really matters one way or the other if they're playing in preseason games or not.
Sure. I mean, that's fair. It's like, we spoke about it last podcast. It's really, it seems to be the line in the sand between the new age coaches and the coaches that have had extensive experience in the league. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, because like Sean McVay, for example, has had extreme success at the NFL playing that style of football in preseason. And I mean, Andy Reid, up until the last few seasons, hadn't won a Super Bowl with his style of coaching, but yet now he's got Patrick Mahomes, and that's kind of all turned around. So I think that there's certainly room for both styles. It's just my comment was more, do you if you think that might have a negative impact on some of the aging positional players that are key contributors for your team. And I'm actually more focused on Kelsey just because that's such a physical position.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think that's going to impact Kelsey at all. He's always, regardless of how he's looked, the dude gets his numbers and is always productive.
Sure, no, he does, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the focus, as you've seen during the preseason, when the number one offense has been out there, I think the mindset is to not have Kelsey be targeted, 40 times a game. Like, I don't know if he's ever actually had 40 targets in a game, but, not be targeted so much to where it's like it was in the past recent years where you knew they were going through Kelsey and Hill, and that was really the only two
Hill
things.
and Kelsey show.
Yeah. But, we've seen, granted, it's only been a small sample size of 6 drives, or not even 6, 5 drives. But we've seen Mahomes and just the offense in general spread the ball out more. You have 6. He has 6 completions to 6 different receivers, and it's a preseason, and things change when you're scheming for a specific team and everything like that. But I really think the mindset. And the franchise knows, Kelsey's getting older. So we need to find a way to keep him productive, but not just drastically streamline, the end of days for him. And I think that you're going to see, just by what they did in the offseason and just the approach that you saw him kind of implement in the regular season, that he's not going to have the same workload as he's had in the past couple of years. So I expect to see pretty good numbers and just health out of him, knowing that there's more than just him and one other guy out there.
I think Jack makes an interesting point there. I typically I would generally agree that, when you lose another elite offensive weapon, you typically end up having coverage shift to the other guy who is another elite offensive weapon. Kelsey certainly fits that bill. Yeah. I would agree with Jack's.
But I say go ahead and double team Kelsey. I mean, because then you got to double him with a safety. That's going to open something else up. So,
for sure. GA Patriot. I do want to make a general comment. I really love the fact that you've been so engaged in the show tonight. And for all others who wish to ask their questions, there's a chat directly below here on YouTube and on Facebook. Go ahead and leave your questions below. So the GA Patriots question is, we pretty much know from Captain that all of the Raiders draft picks made the roster, as well as a couple of UDFAs. So
that was a Freudian slip.
Well, not really, but yeah. With regards to the Chargers Chiefs, I'll let you guys go first, and then I'll go after. Coach, where did your draft picks land? Did you guys cut any? Where were you guys at?
Not a one. Everybody made the roster.
Alex, what about you?
I believe they cut Nazeed Johnson. He was a safety, but it was a 7th round pick. But I actually had a little note to talk about it. Somehow we got into it, and here we are because of GA Patriot. So thank you. But I saw an interesting stat last night that in the past 2 drafts, the Chiefs have had 16 total picks, and of those, you got 14 of those players made the 53-man roster this year, which I think is a pretty incredible thing. When you
That's
consider,
a good number.
Yeah, when you consider
the
amount of turnover you've had, and just the fact that you had to pay Mahomes and kind of have to channel most of your regrouping of your roster in the draft, that you're able to some degree hit on those guys, at least for the purposes of them being on the roster and being a body, maybe for some of them. But just in the years recent, it seems that they've really been able to pop on the earlier picks that they are really counting for to be contributors. Granted, I'm talking about some guys that have just made it through the first preseason, but from everything I've seen, and that the Kingdom has seen, that those guys are looking pretty good as well. So I think that's kind of just an interesting little tidbit to have. They drafted that many people, and 14 of them are still around.
I would say on the Broncos, we've had some ebbs and flows. I think part of the challenge we've had in the last few years is we've changed schemes multiple times. And Captain, yeah, I agree. The problem that Broncos have had is we've gone from kind of like West Coast on the offensive, and then we've kind of gone to, I want to call it power, but it was just really a crappy offense under Pat Shurmur. And now we've gone back to the West Coast. So we've had a bit of a wave in terms of some changes on the Broncos. So we've had a few changes on our roster, but a good portion of our draft picks have actually made the roster. We've had a couple that have been cut. We had a safety early on in the first round that was cut from the roster. He looked good, but not great. The challenge with the Broncos is we've done really well at drafting and bringing in UDFA safeties. So we seem to have this, absolute just embarrassment of riches at the safety position.
Oh, it's that too. That said, it was because of Virgil and the way the Broncos prefaced it. I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. It was like the 10th straight year that an undrafted college player's made their 53 or something wild like that, which is pretty crazy when you think about it.
So we've had 18 of 19 seasons of an undrafted free agent. Oh, it's ridiculous. And not only that, I mean, to put things in perspective, the Denver Broncos UDFA record isn't just mediocre players either.
Yeah.
So to put things in perspective for those of you who are joining us from other AFC West teams, we thank you for joining the show. But I think it's really important that you kind of understand this, which is the Denver Broncos have brought in guys like Shaq Barrett as UDFA players.
Yeah.
Shaq Barrett is top 5 pass rushers in the NFL. So, I mean, you're not talking scrubs within the NFL. You're talking guys that are in the upper echelon at the NFL level of players that the Broncos have brought in as UDFA players, and they have developed into upper tier players at the NFL level. And I think that speaks a lot to the Denver Broncos organization as a whole. Now, I think what it also shows is that the Broncos have struggled to properly recognize talent and adjust to that talent to keep it on the roster. Because a normal team would have never have let a guy like Shaq Barrett go. The Denver Broncos should never have let him walk. He's now in the upper echelon of pass rushers in the NFL, and we let him walk to the Buccaneers. And that's really an issue that I think the Broncos are going to have to correct going forward. So I think that's something to consider and looking forward on from the Broncos perspective, is that we need to start looking at those top tier players and we need to retain them as a team. And then we need to maybe move on from guys that are middle of the pack and not re-sign them to big deals.
Yeah. What did Barrett even want when they let him go? I feel like it wasn't that crazy. And then, in terms of the money.
Oh no, we could have kept him for a fraction of what he ended up actually getting paid. And we really blew that as a team. So I'm but nothing but objective. And I think that's why a lot of other AFC West teams are actually okay with my takes, because I'm not unrealistic in the way that I assess my Denver Broncos. But I'm also critical fairly to the other teams in the AFC West. I'm not one of those guys that are come out and just say, I'm a Broncos fan and therefore every other AFC West team sucks.
Yeah.
So I do feel that I'm pretty balanced when it comes to my critique of everything else. But no, it's the Broncos roster, generally speaking, has kept the majority of our draft picks, specifically this year and the year prior. I do believe George Payton has done an excellent job at drafting. I'm going to use his terms, that middle section of the roster. So when you look at the midsection of the roster, those kind of middling to upper middle players at the NFL level, the Broncos have done an excellent job at drafting those guys. The challenge that we have now is we need to start targeting and identifying the guys that are diamonds in the rough, like a Shaq Barrett, and keeping them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where the Broncos have struggled in recent years. And not to mention, we also need a right tackle. Like, truly, we need a right tackle. Just like, we really need a right tackle.
If you didn't hear him or didn't hear him clearly, you need a right tackle.
Yeah.
I think you guys need a right tackle.
So with that in mind, I'm going to move on to the Denver Broncos to cover off the 4 of our 53-man roster initial cutdowns. By and large, there was very few surprises in Broncos country with regards to the 53-man initial roster cutdown. There's a few names that a number of Broncos fans would have liked to have not seen cut. Kendall Hinton would have been one of them. He was our fourth string quarterback who stepped in against the Saints, who is now in the Hall of Fame for his efforts to try to fill in for the Denver Broncos. He really has elevated himself as a wide receiver at the NFL level. I'm quite surprised that he was able to make it through to come back to our practice squad. I actually thought that he would have been picked up by some other team, because I actually think that over the last 2 seasons, he's proven himself to be a stable, reliable wide receiver at the NFL level. It's really unique. It truly is. It's really, really, really unique. So as I'm looking ahead at some of the other positions, I'm not surprised that we kept Justin Strnad. As you remember from our last podcast just last week, I said that I wouldn't be surprised if we kept him. We did. However, I'm also not going to be surprised if we replace him, because I think we will. So we'll see what happens in the back end of that inside linebacker room. We have a guy that we kept on the practice squad in Mulaga, who, in my opinion, showed as a better player at the NFL level at inside linebacker. I could see those two switching come mid-season. where we would cut Stranad, maybe bring him back as a practice squad guy and have Malaga actually land on our 53. Because I think he's a better tackler. I think he's shown to be more akin to a Josie Jewell, but also much cheaper. So I actually think that from a defensive standpoint, he is a better choice for our team to keep on the roster than, say, a Stranad, for example. I believe Stranad has been late to tackles. I believe he's giving too much cushion to try to make up for a lack of ability to read the play. And I'm not trying to be rude or critical, but it seems to be my assessment where he leaves too much gap between him and the player in front of him. And you cannot have that at the NFL level. You'll be beaten every time. It's a given. So the other things that we saw that I wish the Broncos had not done is we cut Seth Williams, and I think that he really deserved to make the roster. I think he did enough during preseason. And frankly, from everything I've heard, the Broncos have a claim on Williams, but he's basically holding off on returning to the Broncos as he assesses his options. And I think that says a lot. I think that Williams feels that he deserved to make the roster, and he's feeling that the Broncos don't necessarily value him as much as he deserves to be. So we'll see what happens there. And frankly, any team that, in my opinion, that gets him has really got a solid guy at that position. Everyone else seemed to pretty much fit with where I thought they would make it. The only other guy, two guys actually, that I felt really should have made the roster. I think we should have cut Andrew Beck and kept Devine, the running back that we signed last week. He looked incredible as a running back, and I felt deserves a chance to remain on the 53. We did get him back on the practice squad, but we need to be very mindful that I think other teams might be interested in someone like that. But he was a spectacular running back. And last but not least, Netane Muti. He's a guy that I think the Broncos were lucky that he's hurt. And although I do question whether or not if he wasn't hurt, if we would have kept him on the 53, I actually think that he is the best suited guard for the Broncos because he has shorter arms. Like I have longer arms than he does, and I'm actually shorter than he is. But he is probably like 10 times stronger than I am. So I actually think that with his skill set, he is really well suited for a mobile offensive line because his strength will be well suited for a mobile style offensive line because he's also capable of moving. And the fact that he's moving and pushing guys out of the way, I think is well suited for the outside zone scheme because his arm length is not going to become as large of a factor because he can just throw guys out of the way.
T-Rex himself.
No, he's slightly longer than a T-Rex, but he's not quite at the length of a guard that you want.
There you go.
We'll call him an Allosaurus. How's that?
Allosaurus. Look at my Jurassic Park almanac on that one.
Yeah, you got to go ahead and go way back to figure that one out. We'll wait for that one. So that's kind of my general assessment of the Broncos 53. And I also do want to call out, just in front of everyone here, I did, in fact, call the Malik Reed trade.
You did.
I did. And I think that's important. And I do still think that my inside linebacker prediction of Stranad making it, but then probably being cut is likely going to come true as well. But either way, I did call the Malik Reed trade. I think that was going to happen. I am really pissed off that with the fact that George Paton traded him for as little as he did. As I understand it, we had more than three different teams that were interested in getting Malik Reed, and we opted to trade him for lesser trade than other teams were offering to get him to a team that was further ahead in terms of doing well. I think that does well for us acquiring free agents, but at the same time, I don't think it does well for us as a team because we've now lost what we likely could have gained from trade capital. And I'm just a greedy capitalist, so what can I say? So as we move on, I'm curious to see what others have to say about all of our teams in terms of how we did. Were there guys that you wanted us to keep? Was there guys that you thought we should have cut? And who do you think we all should have targeted? There's a comment section down below. Go ahead and leave those comments there. Or if you're live, go ahead and leave those comments in the chat. I would really like to see what your comments are in terms of how each of the 4 teams did and how you think we're going to then square up against each other. I'm going to ask a question, Jack, to you first, because I know you're about 2 minutes away or 3 minutes away from having to go to another show. What do you think you guys need the most moving forward as the Las Vegas Raiders after
Everything.
the 50 roster cut down?
Everything.
Excuse me. Fuck you. Sorry.
Is that lingering COVID, Jet Captain?
Fuck you. Sorry, that's just for you, Coach. I usually give Alex the ones that don't need to be deciphered. But that would be best for you.
I'm only giving you that because it's Raiders week at this point for me. Like it's week one. I'm in week 1 mode already, so it's Raiders week for me. Week and a half. Raiders week and a half.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, and I just put it up. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say wonderful things about the cast that I have here because I love being here. But I definitely got to pop out for the NFL Nation Live show. So make sure you're heading over to NFL Nation Live on YouTube to see that. And the one glaring thing that the Raiders need, and it's amazing that even on their roster where they do like the breakouts of first string, second string, and third string, they don't have right tackle listed. It's amazing. On their depth chart, they do not have a right tackle listed. Illuminor is actually listed as the backup right guard.
That's fascinating.
It is.
So, I mean, if you read between the lines, you know, that's something that might be coming in soon. In fact, and by the way, I'm very sorry to see that Kyle Pecco got cut, but I thought that he was going to be put back on the 53 and they were going to put Hankins on the IR so that they have like a retrievable IR. That still might happen because I like what we got with Pecco, but there's defensive tackles out there, some guy by the name of, Sue. But I don't necessarily think that the Raiders, they do have about at least $18 million in cap space, but I don't think that they're going to use all of that capital right now. I think that they're going to wait until after week 1 because then it's on a game-by-game basis unless you give a guy a straight-up contract. But I think that
Captain,
the Raiders...
Just give me 1 second. I just want to GA Patriot has really been quite active in our chat, and I want to give him an answer real quick. We have an extra guy who could fill in at left tackle, not right tackle for most other teams. And that guy's name is Calvin Anderson. He has shown to be an inadequate right tackle, generally speaking, but I truly believe that he is dare I say, an average to middling, maybe even upper middling left tackle at the NFL level, which if you are struggling as an NFL team to get that left tackle position sorted, you should be trading for him now. He stepped in the 3rd preseason game for the Broncos, and we had 0 pressures on the left-hand side of that offensive line when he was at left tackle. He is that good. So I just want to make sure I answered that question there because I think that's important. We don't really have a spare right tackle, so to speak, on the Broncos.
Yeah, it's like the old Seinfeld episode. Can you spare a square? No. Nobody can spare a square.
No.
Okay.
Not even a single ply?
No.
What about Matthew? I forgot to make the reference, but your boy made the squad.
Yes, I did
see that.
I saw that. Let's have a golf clap for Saubert.
He did. He made the roster. I didn't see him with a depth chart.
Saubert.
So Bear.
Yeah.
Well, he's likely going to be our second tight end because he is that good.
Over
But
Dolchich?
I'll let everyone else kind of rag me in the chat. But let's be honest, he caught a touchdown, and I still believe that he is.
If he catches a touchdown in the regular season, I will buy you a jersey and mail it to you.
Oh,
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's at least 40 people
It's
live
on
at
the
the moment.
record.
It's on the record.
Go ahead
Y'all
and
heard it first.
that
I
is
hope-
live on the
I
internet.
hope-
It's
I
never
hope he
going
does.
away.
Oh,
I hope he
That's
does.
rich.
Sorry, Will, week
Pun
one.
intended.
I hope he does.
Feel like
And you know
yes,
what?
yeah.
money in the game.
He
Well,
might
yeah,
have
actually,
40
Will
bucks
said-
himself.
$160
He's
ones.
got Summer D coming back.
The $350 ones, the Pro Elite, man. I want that one.
No, I'll just
Jesus.
tweet him. I'll be like, hey, man, I lost a bet. Can you send me a game worn?
Right.
He'd be like, wow, I got fans.
Yeah, wow. He one fan. You got one.
Yeah,
Rich.
just one.
You got one fan.
That guy.
I may be the captain of the Saubert fan club, and I'm
You are.
totally willing to admit it.
You are. Third best tight end in the AFC West. Nice. Oh man, that's good stuff. But yeah, that we on the record. Mad Dog, make it a clip.
Hey, I was gonna say I don't think I'm gonna be on the clip this week. I think it's that guy.
I think it's
Or that guy.
yeah, that guy, right, that guy.
And we switched sides here. It's throwing me off.
So
I know,
Captain, before that was interrupted, where do you think you guys need to maybe tweak your roster to really elevate the Raiders to, take over the AFC West?
We've done that already, sight unseen. But I still think that actually.
I'm sorry.
yeah, you're having some of that COVID cough too, there, Coach.
Yeah, a little.
I actually think that that they're gonna get a defensive tackle, and that they're gonna let right guard or right tackle play out with Illuminor, and maybe a surprise pickup. But I think that they're gonna go after a defensive tackle more than they are gonna go after a right tackle, because again, McDaniels knows what he has with Illuminor and Brasili based upon his playing days in New England. And he was playing a very good right tackle for them for I think 6 to 8 games before he got injured a couple years ago. So I think they're gonna roll with what they have there. I think they're probably gonna go defense, and I hate saying it as well. I think we're thin at cornerback. Even though I like what we got with Webb, the kid that's the rookie, I think that he will play up in that. You get a couple injuries to Hobbs, Everett, and Rocky Sin. There's not a lot in the cupboard after that, so we'll see what we got.
I have to agree with your assessment. I think that cornerback and right tackle, your two biggest needs. It would be very interesting to see what you guys do to fulfill those needs. I actually think that Hillman, as a former right tackle on the Denver Broncos, to me, he screams a Patriot-style guy. He's a very tall, very large mountain of a dude. I think that he can fulfill, and with some coaching, can really do well at the right tackle spot. And to me, he's the type of guy that McDaniels likes at the right tackle position, just like a mountain of a dude. And so I could see him at some point landing with the Raiders if he's not already on another team. I have to look it up. I haven't looked it up lately, but the Broncos did cut him early on in the preseason.
Well, you know what? I think they got that with Munford and Bam Olasine. I really do. I think that's
right tackle.
Well, Olasine played right tackle in college, and they've been using him exclusively as left tackle in the preseason. Maybe they want to broaden his horizons to make him that swing tackle. Munford was playing well at right tackle, so I think that they think that maybe we don't have to look beyond the bounds. And having said that, permission to go ashore, sir.
Denied.
Permission granted.
Permission granted, buddy.
Gentlemen, have a good night. We'll see you over there on NFL Nation Live. Always a pleasure hanging out with this crew. Take care, everybody.
Pick up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've lost our Raiders perspective, but that is okay. We're going to move on to Alex, and I'm going to get you to weigh in on the Chiefs. What do you think that your roster is missing right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of a wish list, I'd really like them to find a nice, solid second player to play the interior of the D line behind Jones. But I don't think that's going to, that they're not certainly going to find out anyone that was cut or anything like that. But I think that is a position they might look at adding more depth to because they only have 4. But I think we had some technical difficulties when I went over what I was talking about earlier. But they kept they kept Stallworth and Shelton as their vested veteran practice squad D tackles. And I think the plan is to kind of move those guys up and down week to week to some degree with the time that they can to have that added depth at D tackle. But that was going to be my other one is a wide receiver because
that's a good one.
That's absolutely wrong.
That's a good one. I like G.A. Patriot already. He just got here. I like him already.
But wide receiver would be my other one to maybe add based off of who was cut or who's out there. I think with the guy in Tampa Bay, Tyler Johnson. He got released, and I always thought he was a solid passing option, and I think that they might need from the fact that they kept only 5, and although one of Jody Fortson is a kind of a hybrid tight end and wide receiver played before, so I think they're planning to use him kind of as both. But those would be the 2 that I think if the cards fell right and someone's out there, those are the 2 position groups that they are looking for to have a little more depth and maybe a little more experience depth than what's currently on the 53. But yeah, no.
I just want to bring up this comment. Warrior for Christ, I thank you for joining the show. Please keep those questions and comments coming. I really appreciate you joining us. We do our best to keep this as close to as family friendly as possible, including with our Ace Ventura references that have occurred in multiple shows. We really do.
Until
we really
Cap
do
goes
attempt
off the rails. We're pretty safe.
Yeah, we are relatively safe. We do our best. So Alex, back over to you. So the gaps there, I think, are what our fans are really looking at in terms of, is it wide receiver? Is it inside linebacker? Is it filling in the safety gap with your various losses in the offseason? What do you think?
In terms of where they have like a large disparity from the top to the bottom?
Well, I agree. I actually agree with your gap, and I can't put my arms wide enough between Chris Jones and who's behind him.
Yeah. Nandi.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that even the Rams would agree that if Aaron Donald were to go down with an injury, they would have an equal gap between the guy behind him.
I don't know. That kid Greg Gaines is pretty good. Greg Gaines is pretty good, actually.
He is nowhere near Aaron Donald.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I mean, if the Rams lose Aaron Donald, they're probably better off with the people they have behind them. Obviously you can't replace Aaron Donald. You can't replace Chris Jones. Right. But if the Chiefs lost Chris Jones, you would most definitely know it because, they wouldn't be able to stop anybody.
It'd be a revolving door in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it at times. Finally, I got someone in the chat who's got my back. Tom Hood, my dog, my road dog. There we are. But you could see it at times when Chris Jones was injured or out of games. The drastic change from how the defense played, kind of similar to Matthew, but Chris Jones is, in my opinion, and I think objectively speaking, the second best defensive tackle in the league behind Aaron Donald. So, I mean, it's hard to have a narrow gap between someone like that and who plays behind him. But they've had, everyone they kept has been on the team for 3+ years. Were drafted with the mindset that they would be that middle of the field run stuffer to help Chris Jones, and none of them have really taken off like that. Wharton, one of them they kept. He's actually a Division II player in Missouri, but he's like a pass rush specialist, so you only see him go out there and in passing downs. Sanders, the other one, is kind of a smaller sized FCS player who's always been injured. And then you have Nandi, who's been on the team 3-4 years out of Florida State and is never really, he's had the second role because there's been nobody else. So he's never really gotten to his ceiling or made any sort of significant progressions behind, playing in the middle of the line. So I think you saw them want to at least have more competition at that going into camp. I mean, they had 8 defensive tackles during preseason. I mentioned Taylor Stallworth and Danny Shelton, are staying on the practice squad as those veterans. So that they still want to keep that sort of flowing. Yeah. Okay. I would have thought with GA Patriot that they were a Patriot fan, but just a really big no fan, I guess.
Well, I mean, his avatar is an American flag, so it's probably just
military
Patriot as in U.S. Patriot, as opposed to Patriots as in.
I was about to give some extra real savage Mac Jones comments, but then here we are. Never mind.
So I guess do you know who I actually think would be pretty good behind as a better option is a guy that Captain was bringing up and I brought up is Kyle Pecco.
Yeah.
I actually think Pecco would be a great addition to the Chiefs. And yet Andy Reid hasn't even knocked on the door to say, hey, bring him in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think someone like that is certainly the type of player they're looking for. That's why they brought in, that's why they brought in Danny Shelton. I mean, that guy weighed every bit of 360 pounds. It was we're just going to have this guy here to absorb triple teams and just stuff the line of scrimmage. But, he, I think, was signed on late. So, he probably, being the size he is, didn't really get up to speed, which is why he's probably on the practice squad outside one of these other guys. But that is the type of player that I think they know they need, and that I think they need is that big body dude that's not particularly known for pass rushing, but more so known for just eating blockers. And that would help the line just in general, and also just give you another option, I guess, or another player out there that is going to be able to do that role efficiently.
Right. And Mike, with regards to your comments there, I've always been a huge Saubert fan since he came to the Broncos. And Pecco, when I saw him on the Broncos, was really destined to make the 53, except I firmly believe that the Broncos, and more importantly, John Elway, impacted his ability to make the 53. And that really hindered his career because he had a GM that didn't really believe in defensive line depth and kind of the
QB
and the gritty style players. And most NFL teams are largely comprised of grit and strength at the NFL level. And Peko and Saubert are really the epitome of those style of players. And you need those guys. Now, are they going to be the splash players like, your Tyreek Hills or your, your speed dudes? No. Are they going to be your Von Millers of the NFL? No. But every NFL team has like 50% of the roster made up of guys just like those.
Just beef.
They're literally there.
They're American Samoan beef.
Exactly, 100%. And that's really important. So you really, really need those gritty style players. I came from a rugby background here in Canada because for whatever reason, we don't believe in football, even though my family pedigree is CFL football at the pro level. But we don't believe in, the NFL. The NFL has kind of gone away from the grit. And yet when you actually look at the NFL teams, the bulk of the roster is grit still. But the media and the way that the NFL, PR has gone, they are hyping up the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the splash players. But those are, 5 or 6 players, maybe 10 players out of 53. So the remainder of the 53 are all still the grit and the beef dudes. And so we need to give credit where credit's due. I mean, I'm 6'2" and 245 pounds, and I come from a CFL family, multi-generation.
Who's your squad?
Who believes in hitting people at full speed with minimal pads. And pain is a weakness that we can ill afford, is our family motto.
It's a weakness that leaves the body.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's really, really important that we look at the NFL and contact sports through the lens that it deserves. Coach Defense, I think, would agree with a lot of my comments because a lot of defensive players have a very similar mindset.
Who's your CFL squad? I need to know, along with some of our viewers.
My family has been directly tied to the Ticats.
Okay, there we go. So that's your squad.
So I would say that would be my squad.
I just like Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan.
No.
There you go. Oh my God.
For those
I do like the Rough Riders.
For those people that don't quite understand, Saskatchewan is not just cold. It is you walk outside and your legs stick together cold.
Wow. Yeah, I don't want to visit that place.
And that is ridiculous. My family is from the very north part of Ontario, which is just as cold as Saskatchewan. We're just a little bit more sane. My family moved further south because we looked at that temperature and said, hell no. And so we moved further south. So with regards to football, I'm going to take over from the Broncos perspective here. And then Coach, I'm going to throw over to you for the Chargers side of the same coin, which is, I thought we did a pretty good job overall of addressing some of our weaknesses. That is great.
Oh man, yes, that's great.
That is great.
Oh man.
I assume you mean only in the wintertime.
Right, exactly.
It's about 90 degrees Fahrenheit here right now. And I'm Canadian, but I deal with so many Americans that I have to be able to do the conversion very quickly in my head. But the point well taken. No, with regards to just general football decisions and what we have from what we saw from the initial 53-man and what we brought back currently on the the practice squad. The Broncos.
I'm not gonna put that up there, but that's hilarious.
Linebacker position.
Yeah.
We really do.
I agree. I definitely agree with that.
What we saw in the preseason was an exploitation of our inside linebackers. And if you don't believe me, please go back and look at our preseason tape from the Denver Broncos. Other teams were attacking us both in the pass game and the run game, where we would have pass catchers and running backs and tight ends, et cetera, make it to that second level and then make plays. That was an issue for us. And that means that other teams do not respect our inside linebacker position group. We need to get better at that position group. The other thing that we need to start doing is playing guys in better positions for what they're better suited. Wazirike, Henningsen, and a few other guys are better suited at the nose tackle or heavy sets when we're doing the defensive end position to try and do run stuffing. And we did not do a good job at doing that in the preseason, and teams exploited that. We saw large gashes and runs in the preseason. We really need Evero to make those adjustments for the regular season so that we do not end up in, similar positions or worse positions. Because at least Fangio, as much as Broncos fans would like to slag on him for his record for the Broncos, he really did make adjustments quickly and was a defensive genius and is a defensive genius at the NFL level when it comes to defensive schemes. So he masked a lot of our weaknesses in the previous 2 seasons. We need to have better player personnel at those inside linebacker and defensive tackle positions to put pressure on the quarterback and prevent those runs up the gut. Preseason really showcased our weaknesses there. We need to fix that this year. Aside from that, wide receiver, I think we're quite deep at for the Denver Broncos. I think we can really backfill that spot. And tight end, I think we have an embarrassment of riches, rather. I think we've got some UDFAs that are top tier on other teams. I think we have Saubert, who will embarrass the Chiefs in particular.
Wow.
That should have been the bet.
That'll be it. If he catches that touchdown on the Chiefs, that's gonna really be it. If he catches that touchdown with a jersey on the Chiefs, that's really gonna be it. Rich is gonna lose his mind if he catches it on the Chiefs. I'm telling you right now.
No, I'm not gonna lie. Saubert, since he joined the Denver Broncos, has really impressed me. He really truly has, and I think that what you're seeing from him is that hybrid tight end role.
I looked up his career stats one time though, so I think I need at some point to
You can get his career stats all you want, but the problem with career stats is that you have to be used properly.
Well, yeah.
So you have the benefit of Andy Reid, who is an offensive genius and basically tells other people to, where to go and how fast to get there. Whereas other teams have not been as fortunate to have offensive-minded head coaches. I think this year is the Broncos' chance to have an offensive-minded head coach coupled with an offensive coordinator who gels well with the head coach as well.
Also, to answer Tom's question here, it's been a while since the Broncos beat the Chiefs, Tom. I actually have a tweet that I screenshot and have been saving to use at any moment. And it's things that didn't exist the last time the Broncos beat the Chiefs. You want to know what some of them are? We got TikTok, Stranger Things, White Claws, the iPhone 7, Disney Plus, any of Tom Holland's Spider-Mans, Fortnite, or any of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. None of those things existed the last time the Broncos beat Kansas City.
Oh, Fortnite existed before the Broncos beat the Chiefs.
I don't know.
That just shows your lack of depth of
Tom
human
said
history.
The internet.
Yeah. And Mr. Givens, Google is a thing.
Oh well.
Yeah. GS, whatever it is.
But either way, I truly believe, from what I've seen from Saubert, that he is that blend of a tight end that every team really wants. He can block, he can pass catch, he can kind of do all the gritty things that you want from a tight end. And that's really where I'm aiming with him. And I think that that's what you want on your team. I think where the big question mark come up is from guys like Noah Fant and Albert O. Albert O has shown some gaps in his blocking in the run game, and I think that Noah Fant showed the same. So the question is that while they are great athletes and can show they can catch balls, et cetera, when you need the well-rounded tight end on the field, are you showing your hand when you throw a Saubert out there instead of them? And I think that when you have a tight end on the field, you need a guy that can be all things at all times, and Saubert is that guy, in my opinion. Okay. So if I were to head coach or an offensive coordinator, and I threw Saubert out there, I would truly look at all of the AFC West opponents and said, "You have no idea what I'm going to do," because he can do all three things well. Now, he may not be elite at either of those three things, but he can do all three things well. Good luck figuring out what he's going to do when he's on the field. You're done. And he showed that in the preseason. He showed that last preseason, and he showed that last season, and I expect him to show more of the same this year. Albert O has shown flashes of good run blocking. In fact, he's shown flashes of elite run blocking. But the problem is he's been inconsistent at the run blocking side of things. But he's been an exceptional route runner, speed, size mismatch, etc. But the problem is that because you haven't shown that consistency, other teams won't fully respect the other elements of your game until you can show it consistently. And I think that's what the problem is. And other teams are seeing that on tape and on film, and they're saying, I dare you to throw him into run blocking. I dare you to throw him into those outside zone style blocks where he's kind of the additional left or right tackle, because he is not shown to be the guy that can do those things on a consistent basis. Kelsey, on the flip side, Alex, to your credit, has shown the ability to do those mixed things. He has shown the ability to kind of be that Gronkowski guy at the tight end position. Saubert, in the same coin, has also shown to be that guy that can do those three phases of the tight end game. So that's where I'm coming from when I make the comments that I do. So by and large, I think we've had a pretty good show tonight. We've covered the gamut. But before we go, I want to hear from you, Coach. Where do you think the Chargers need to improve in the 53?
I would say, well, clearly ain't running back. We can say that. With 4 running backs on the roster, still shaking my head on more than that. But again, maybe Lombardi has something up his sleeve that we haven't seen as far as the run game is concerned. But I would say for sure, I would think that I would say wide receiver. I'm still on the wide receiver bandwagon. Wide receiver, quick returner. That vein. Yeah, that vein.
You could always load up on more wide receivers, you know.
I mean,
I was really hoping Darius Slayton would get cut from New York.
Oh, from the Giants? Yeah. So yeah, I got a guy like a Michael Bandy who is a kick returner and a wide receiver. You know, he can be used in multiple facets. I think that's the main position I think of need we would have, because that's probably the thinnest position we have from a roster perspective. And of course, I don't like my backup quarterbacks, but yet again, I'm just praying that Justin never get hurt. You know, he gets to hang now. It's a whole different ball game when it comes to the Chargers. But yeah, outside of that, I think we're pretty solid. We're really deep at corner. We're 2 deep at safety. We're 6 deep at linebacker. We're 6 deep at D line. You
say a linebacker. There's multiple positions.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Inside linebacker, we're 6 deep, and we're 4 deep at outside linebacker.
Okay.
And then we're 9 deep at O-line, 4 deep at running back, 3 deep at quarterback. So we got 1 fullback in Xander Horvath. They said it's time. It's a Xander. We're now entering the Xander zone. That's what my guys on Twitter says. We're entering the Xander zone now.
We'll see.
Yeah, so the coach, yeah, okay.
Does he have the raspy voice?
Who?
Xander.
Oh, I don't know. I actually had him talk. I actually never heard him talk, so I'm not sure.
Because I am Groot.
Then you have not entered the Xanders.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I think we're pretty solid. Yeah, Bloodbath Horvath. That's it. Bloodbath Horvath. But yeah, outside of that, I think just another receiver. Because it is a passing league. And if you take one nick to one receiver for a couple of weeks, you're definitely up against if you want to do certain things on offense. So I would say that's probably the only thing.
So, Coach, I'm going to kick you off on G.A. Patrick's question here. This is a really interesting one. This has been brought up on several of our shows.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean like one or two. I mean probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah, it might have been like every show in the last month or two, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I haven't done the math.
Me neither. But I don't think it's. I honestly, truly don't think it's possible. I've never seen it becoming close to being possible.
So the closest I've seen to this is like 5 or 6 years ago, where we had three AFC West teams make the playoffs.
Right.
I don't know if it's possible for 4 to make it.
I don't think it's mathematically possible, but I think because the divisional winners have to have one in. I think that ruins it because if you had best record from top to bottom, you took the best 7. It doesn't matter for a division. Yeah, you can get 4 in. But I think that if it's because of just sheer divisional people getting first, the first 4 are divisional winners, and the next 3 are wild cards. I just don't think it's mathematically possible because somebody in the AFC South who probably don't deserve to go is going to take up a playoff spot in the AFC playoffs. So I think that's the only thing that's going to kill it.
No, and so
it is possible. I did look that up. But
it is possible.
But a lot has to happen.
A lot. Like everybody has to be bad outside of one team.
Like the Bengals have to regress to where they were like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. Every team would have to be like 2-16.
Trash.
Right, exactly.
So I think that's unrealistic, but I think that there is a legitimate possibility, especially with the pass rush and assuming we don't have major injuries in the FC West, where you could well see 3.
I think 3 is a good possibility.
And I think that when you see, there's been some comments made on mainstream media where, and I don't disagree with it, where it's possible that this is the best quarterback division ever in football.
Oh yeah. That's
ever.
That's hard. That's find somebody else to debate about that one. I agree with that completely.
Ever.
Ever
in football.
Never had. I can't recall a time where every team in the division has someone who is a for sure lock in the top 10 of QBs in the league. Maybe even top 5, maybe.
Well, right now you have an up and coming guy in Herbert who's probably within the top 5 to 10. You have Russell Wilson, who's likely a lock at Hall of Fame. In terms of what he's done in the NFL, in terms of his stats.
Oh, yeah.
You have Patrick Mahomes, who is all but a first-round lock in terms of Hall of Fame, even now, based on what he's done in the NFL.
I think a little early to call that. I had to be real
about
it. But if he's on a trajectory that he's on now, definitely.
No. He has won. I think the only thing he hasn't won right now is he won Rookie of the Year. Did he not?
No, he didn't because he didn't play his rookie year.
No. So he has not run Rookie of the Year, but has he won? He hasn't won MVP yet, has he?
Yeah, yes.
His first year.
So he's won MVP and he's won a Super Bowl
MVP, Pro Bowl every year. Been to 4 AFC title games. 2 Super Bowls.
Right. So when you look at his total stats, he is within the upper tier of NFL quarterbacks over the last 10 years.
Yeah, no question.
He's a certifiable baller. That's for sure.
Yes.
Oh no,
So-
no, definitely not saying that. But I just think it's a little early to wave the Hall of Fame flag when he only played 5 years?
Hey,
6.
well,
6?
this is 2017 was his first year starting.
Yeah, so 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah.
No.
2022.
5 years
2018.
starting, 6 years in the league.
Right. I said 5 years of stats. Like he didn't play his first year, so 5 years of playing
Yeah.
quarterback.
It doesn't matter. He started his first year at the last game of the year and just killed it.
Against who?
The Broncos. Enough out of you.
I remember that. I remember the first throw he had was like a dime across the middle.
No.
It hit
There was no denying when you watched him play in that. No, there was no denying when you saw him play in that game that he was a special talent.
Yeah.
That there just really wasn't. But the point that I'm making here and what I'm kind of saying is that you have Patrick Mahomes, who's likely a first ballot Hall of Famer. You have Russell Wilson, who is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. You have Justin Herbert, who is certainly on a trajectory that if he can win a Super Bowl in the next, say, 3 to 5 years, that is probably on the same trajectory as the other two quarterbacks I just mentioned. Because he's already beaten out all of the previous quarterbacks' rookie records. Right? So if you're looking at, relatively speaking, he is certainly on a Hall of Fame trajectory if he can continue to kind of go on that mold. The only quarterback who really has to try to do something is Derek Carr. And to have 3 out of 4 quarterbacks in a division who are penciled in or penned in at the Hall of Fame is unprecedented.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Especially not too long ago, it was Derek Carr was probably the best QB in the division when you had like Alex Smith and Rivers, and I don't even know who the Broncos had at the time. Paxton Lynch. I don't know.
Right. Something crazy.
But yeah, I mean, well, and even not to really knock Derek Carr, he doesn't have the like same flash, I guess, as those guys do passing the ball. But Derek Carr is every bit as good a QB as those guys are to be. So I really think that like across the board, it's a pretty narrow margin for how good every team's QB is. Obviously with Mahomes at the top, but whatever.
Well, Rivers never won a Super Bowl.
Nope. He lost to the Patriot, right? They only made it to the title game like 1 year.
Yep.
You're right.
Yep.
And as a quarterback, you have to be the reason, not a reason.
Well, just threw side on him.
And I chose my words very carefully there. So you have to
Let
be
me ask this
the
question.
reason.
Are there quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame that haven't won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, there has to be. There's no way there's not.
So I mean, you look at Rivers' numbers. Oh,
not many.
I mean, but there are though. That's the question. Is it possible that a quarterback that hasn't won a Super Bowl is in the Hall of Fame?
Marino, I think, is in the Hall of Fame, but
Yes.
I don't think you can argue against him because he had a perfect season.
Warren Moon.
No, but Marino, but Moon and Marino, you could look back and say you can't mention their era without them.
Well, yeah, but
I'm not sure you could mention Phillip Rivers' era without him being mentioned. I mean, unless you want to start including bolo ties.
Bolo ties. Okay.
But Coach, even as a Chargers fan, you have to admit when you look at that era, it was
Jim Kelly's in there, and
Ben Roethlisberger. It was Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, right? Like if you're going to truly be objective about that era of football, when Philip Rivers was in the
Yeah,
NFL.
there were a plethora of good quarterbacks on that
Eli
side.
Manning.
No, but I mean, Eli Manning is at the bottom of that group, right?
Yeah.
And he won 2 Super Bowls. But if you're looking at the top echelon of that group of quarterbacks, Tom Brady, you have Peyton Manning, who cannot go without being mentioned. Even Drew Brees would be another guy that you'd have to bring into the conversation. And then you have the other guys I just mentioned. Like Rivers is way down that list.
He'll probably
like Ben Roethlisberger would have to be mentioned ahead of Rivers.
Yeah,
he has to be.
So
I don't argue that. I'm just. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, they both got 2 Super Bowls. I mean, you know, that's the difference maker. You know, you do. I guess.
Right,
you know,
and I'm not saying that I don't think that Rivers has a claim. I'm saying that you have to look at the overall circumstances. And Rivers was never the reason. He was never the reason why you won, and he was never the reason why you lost.
I wouldn't say that. No,
I
don't want to nitpick and drag this on. I'm just saying that I think Philip Rivers gets a lot of disrespect that's unwarranted. I'll leave it at that.
I agree with that as well. But the point is that when you look at the other quarterbacks that he went up against or he would be compared against, they have better stats than he did. And whether or not you and then the question is, do you factor Super Bowl wins in as team statistics or individual statistics?
Well, the problem with the quarterback position is, you know, the team wins, it's going to be viewed as a quarterback win. You know, like that's the position that the team success is most, most commonly assessed of the player, not
right.
So that's just kind of the nature of the beast of playing QB. I'm trying to see where. Well, yeah.
Right, but either way, we are getting near to the back end of the show here, guys. We're gonna have some really interesting stuff to talk about next week in terms of where our practice squads end up, how our teams end up, what we look like, what we think we're going to do next week, week 1's predictions, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have some super, super interesting things to talk about next week. We'd like for everyone to join us next week to talk about what you think, why you'd like to see some changes, who you'd like to see gone, who you'd like to see to stay, etc. But I think what we need to do here is we're going to end the show now. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. And if you have any other questions, down below in the chat of the video, ask us those questions. Make sure we get those things answered for you next week. And more importantly, we're about to get into the regular season. And let's be honest, we're going to become somewhat less friendly as the season becomes, as the season comes on.
As anticipated.
And that should be anticipated for all of us. And everyone, if you would like to join us for next week, please come back to the Wild Wild West podcast. We will have all of the AFC West news for you. And until next week, the West Side is the best side. See you next week.